Hello, everyone. I'm Thom. It's been years since this coronavirus disruption started, and I've been taking this time to eat beef jerky and talk to you on the internet. I'm not an expert or a food critic, I just like beef jerky. But this vlog has been good fun, and it's been letting me explore some fun ideas with you, especially regarding game design, which is my thing. Today, I'm featuring another pack of quality beef jerky, um, gifted to me by my good friend Adam Para. Thank you, Adam. It is wow, it's getting so close to Thanksgiving here in America. It's the 19th of November, and this is episode number 69. If you need a joke about that, then consider it read and done. um, but what I wanted to talk about today in this video, besides of course tasting the tasty beef jerky, was twin stick shooters. So, twin stick shooters are a genre of video game that's waxed and waned in popularity. Um, Fascinatingly enough, everyone says that it got its start with Robotron 2048, I think, um, which was a big hit video game, arcade video game that came out in 1982. Robotron 2084, yeah. Made by Eugene Jarvis and I think Larry DeMar, according to this Wikipedia page. But it certainly wasn't, the idea of Robotron that blew everyone away was certainly the frenetic action. It was very intense, crazy intense at the time. But also the fundamental control scheme that you had one joystick for your moving and one joystick for shooting. And so when you press the joystick, when you press the shooting joystick in that direction, you shot in that direction. There was no extra fire button. You just aimed, and in the case of aiming, caused the bullet to come out. And then, of course, the other stick was entirely for moving, and they were completely independent, so you could always shoot left while moving right if you wanted to. According to Wikipedia, that's certainly not the first one. Um, Wikipedia says there's an arcade game in 1975 called Gunfight. Um, and let's see here. Yeah, released as Western Gun in Japan. And then there was this direct sequel called Boot Hill, and there was a game called Space Dungeon in 1981, which had the joystick left for movement, right for shooting. And there was a video game called Mars and another one called Vanguard. Um, I think I played Vanguard, um, and but yeah, um, and then there was a after Robotron, it became a reasonably popular game genre, but um, there were a couple of arcade games that came a little later, Smash TV in 1990 and Total Carnage in 1992, which really revived the genre and were big hits. And then, that again fell out of favor until when something called Geometry Wars Retro Evolved came out for the Xbox 360. That was a huge hit. That was a big deal. Everybody was playing it. It was a very abstract game with almost a Lamatron kind of ethos of so much kinetic, bright colors happening on the screen that you were overwhelmed, almost with synesthesia. There's just so much color and so much going on that you could almost taste it or feel it. Um, and that certainly, from the time of Robotron, was kind of a part of the action. It wasn't just the twin joysticks, one for movement and one for shooting, that defined a twin stick shooter. It was also very much the intensity of action gameplay. Um, and that doesn't mean there are twin stick shooters that aren't so intense. Um, but again, the definition, the idea of twin stick shooter is fundamentally wrapped up in that conceit of, can you handle the intensity? Can you handle the action? Every wave comes immediately. Um, in later eras, including now, but also with Geometry Wars, the the twin stick shooter genre kind of overlapped with the bullet hell shooter genre. Bullet hell, of course, is the idea of your normal spaceship going pew pew while enemies come at you. Um, but in the case of bullet hell, the enemies have bullets. There are a lot of bullets that come out of them. They're very slow comparatively, and they come out in geometric patterns often. And what that means is that you, as the player, spend a lot of time snaking in between and adjusting and dodging and diving. It's almost like an incredibly kinetic puzzle or maze game with a bullet hell shooter. And so the tropes of bullet hell, the patterns and the large amounts of slow bullets, were often integrated into twin stick shooters, even though bullet hell was not originally a concept of twin. It was more of a traditional top scrolling shooter. Um, but these, this it's all action, it's all arcade, and I was just experimenting with the code myself recently, which is what kind of got me back into it. As a kid, of course, Robotron was just mind blowing, and it essentially came out around the same time or a little bit after the Tron movie came out in I think '81. Um, so I could go. My friend Scott and I went to the theater and watched Tron, and then we went next door, and not only did we play the Tron video games that actually were in the arcade next door, but we could also play Robotron, as I recall. Been a long time. Memories are. But I remember playing Robotron, and Robotron was just so intense. It was. It's definitely kind of like Defender. It was kind of a big boy arcade game. It moved so fast. You really had to be good at it to last, you know, even a minute. It was intimidating as a game for a young man like me. Um, and I've never necessarily been good at it. I've never been an expert at such games. I just think they're fascinating, as I think all games and video games are fascinating. So, yeah, twin stick shooters. Not sure exactly why I'm bringing them up, other than I've been experimenting with my code. Um, but it makes me think of that, and it makes me think about yeah, how interesting. It's a bit of video game history, an interesting bit of video game history, with names and places attached. But you didn't necessarily come here for video game history. You came here for uh, beef jerky. And I got some here right now. Thank you, Adam Para. This is original Smokehouse beef jerky from Kroger. Nice big package. So I think I should give it a try. I'm living dangerously. I don't actually have a drink next to me. However, I'm pretty feeling safe that I won't need a drink, that this is not too hot. I mean, we're gonna find out if I'm wrong. But all right, I got myself a piece of this original Kroger Smokehouse jerky. Yeah, I would say it's perfectly acceptable mainstream jerky. It is definitely not as dry and crispy or as shoe leather as some jerkies I've tried, but neither is it too wet or soggy or spongy. And it's also, as predicted, not particularly hot, not challenging, not bold in any way. But it's good. It's good, normalized, anyone can eat it jerky. Share it with your kids. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, that's perfectly edible and acceptable jerky. I like it. All right, everybody. I did mention that it's perfectly acceptable and tasty jerky, and I'm going to have some more. But I think we should also talk about the mailbag. Adam, on my last video, thanked me for thanking him for the jerky. And he said, I saw it and I knew I had to send you some. Thank you, Adam. Then he basically said, do you miss Radio Shack? I sure do. The principle of Radio Shack, yeah, but, okay, well, so the nice thing about Radio Shack, it was in every town. And back in the day when I was a kid, certainly I could get in Houston, but that's not saying much because Houston's a big city that has lots. But even in a small town, you go to Radio Shack and take your first steps into electronics and soldering and assembling parts and even ICs together. They always had a nice stock of the classic 555 timer chip, which you could use to make LEDs blink, which is what I did when I was, 13 or 14, I guess. And, it always had a soldering iron and some solder and some, and it had those really great, at the time, little booklets, which were diagrams of circuits. And then you could, it was pretty well laid out, and you could follow it. Oh, I can get the LED to blink. Oh, I can do a radio. Oh, this, stuff. So that was great, and that I miss. Having said that, we're in the 21st century now, and things are different. On the one hand, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, you may not get direct access to, going down to the corner and being able to grab an IC and some resistors and a soldering iron. But now, we basically have that door-to-door service where I could go to Amazon and get the same stuff for really even cheaper and get it delivered to my door, even in Backwater, Kentucky, at least as far as I understand, unless there's something going on that I don't know about logistics. So every kid can still, reach out and get what they need to start the way I did. But more than that, I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but over here in Cleveland, we've got on the east side, we've got a micro center that actually has a fairly large electronics hobbyist section. And it's got all our Raspberry Pis, and it's got all the Arduinos, and it's got lots of soldering and tubes and wires and stuff. And it's even got a lot of SparkFun and Adafruit products. Look them up if you're interested in that kind of thing. So you can get screens and buttons and speakers and sensors galore at my local micro center, and that's great, and the price is reasonable. I'll also mention that as I was just saying last week, the technology keeps moving forward, and the things that are available to anyone now in terms of hobbyist electronics far surpass anything that I had when I was growing up. And that includes, electronics, especially STEM electronics packages. And so I don't know, because I'm not into the schools and I'm not plugged into the schools, but I'm certain American schools are underfunded. But that doesn't stop it from being that electronics and electronics hobbyist stuff are much more easy to get, much more easy to use, much more well documented for school purposes, for education purposes, and science learning than they've ever been before. So yeah, I miss bits of Radio Shack and what it meant to me at the time. But I also think that there's no doubt that there's alternatives that are at least as good, if not a lot better, for today's young people. The only real crime, I think, would be if, a young 12 or 13-year-old was denied access to the internet because, their parents didn't want them watching porn or something. Because, all of that accessibility to not only electronics hobbyists of the purchasing, but also the knowledge that appears on YouTube and on Reddit and 1,000 other places that, actually tremendous amount of documentation and information about how to hook two wires together and make magic is out there, which, again, the best we had were those cool little booklets at Radio Shack. So yeah, obviously I have significant feelings about that. But thank you for reminding me about that, Adam. Okay, so original Smokehouse beef jerky from Kroger. Very safe, very tasty, very good. And I really appreciate you being here with me as we do this. Joystick shooters, woohoo! And I think that's all I have to say. So I'll see you next time on episode 70.